Why your brain always assumes the worst. This is basically the focus of today's episode from Grow with Aziza. Hello, everyone. I'm Aziza, and welcome to today's episode. Over the last few episodes, we have actually been talking about anxiety, overthinking, and future worries. We explored why anxiety creates excessive thinking, why we worry so much about the future, and how to calm an anxious mind. Today, I want to talk about something that almost every anxious person experiences. Why does your brain always assume the worst? Why does one small problem suddenly turn into a disaster in your mind? Why does one unanswered message make you think someone is upset with you? Why does one mistake make you feel like you have ruined everything? And why does one challenge make you imagine the worst case scenario? If you have ever searched for things like, why do I always think the worst? Why does my brain assume the worst? How do I stop negative thinking? How do I stop catastrophic thinking? And why do I always expect bad things to happen? In this case, this episode is definitely for you because today we are going to explore why your brain automatically jumps to worst case scenarios and how to stop letting those thoughts control your life. Let me ask you something. Has this actually ever happened to you when you send someone a message, they don't reply for a few hours? Immediately, your mind starts working and starts asking you things like, did I say something wrong? Are they upset with me? Did I offend them? Maybe they don't want to talk to me anymore. And then a few hours later, they reply with something like, I'm so sorry, I have been busy all day. So, what happened? Nothing actually was wrong, right? But your mind had already created an entire story. Or let's say your manager says something like, can we talk tomorrow? That's it. Your manager simply said, can we talk tomorrow? And then what happened? Because of one sentence, your brain started talking and your brain started creating worst case scenarios. Like, for example, oh my gosh, my manager wants to talk to me tomorrow. That means I am in a big trouble. Or maybe I am going to lose my job. Or I must have done something wrong. But then the next day, your manager simply wants to discuss a new project. Have you noticed what happened? Your brain basically filled in the missing information, and almost every time it filled it in with something negative. This is something psychologists often call catastrophic thinking. What does catastrophic thinking mean? It is actually when your mind automatically imagines the worst possible outcome, even when there is a very little evidence that it is actually going to happen. And if you struggle with anxiety, this pattern becomes even stronger because an anxious brain is not actually trying to make you miserable. It is basically trying to protect you. Imagine, for example, you are walking through a forest, all right? Thousands of years ago, hearing strange sound could maybe mean danger. The people who paid attention survived. So our brains evolved to notice possible threats. The problem is your brain still works that way today, except now the danger is not a wild animal. It is actually an email, or maybe a meeting, a phone call, a delayed reply, a presentation, a difficult conversation, your brain reacts as if uncertainty itself is dangerous. So it immediately asks questions like, what is the worst thing that could happen? Here's what is interesting. Your brain almost never asks, what is the best thing that could happen? Or what is the most realistic outcome? But actually, it jumps straight to disasters, to danger, to like miserable scenarios. Not because it is accurate, but because it is protective. Your brain thinks like, if I expect the worst, I would be prepared. But here's the problem. Expecting the worst doesn't prepare you. It simply makes you suffer twice. Once in your imagination, and again if something actually happens. Think about how many times you have worried about something that never happened. Maybe you thought, I am definitely going to fail this interview. Then what happened? You got the job. Or you thought something like, everyone will laugh if I give this presentation. But afterwards, people congratulated you. Or maybe you convinced yourself this small mistake will definitely ruin everything. But a week later, nobody even remembered it. So, how many hours did you actually spend worrying about situations that never became reality? Probably more than you can count, right? One thing I have actually realized is that an anxious mind doesn't always like unanswered questions. It would rather believe something bad than unanswered questions. Like, for example, if you tell yourself that you don't know the answer, you don't know what is going to happen. You did the interview, but you don't know the result. You did the exam, but you don't know the grade. You did maybe you had a meeting, but you don't know what is going to happen. You don't know. But because the brain doesn't like this sentence, the brain doesn't like I don't know. The brain doesn't like it. The brain feels uncomfortable with this uncertain sentence. So what happened? Your brain quickly creates an answer. Unfortunately, it is usually the worst possible one, the worst answer. This is why uncertainty feels so difficult. Your brain mistakes uncertainty for danger. But uncertainty is not danger, it is actually information you don't have yet. Seriously, it is simply information you don't have yet. There is a huge difference. Imagine looking outside and seeing dark clouds. You don't immediately know if it is going to rain, right? That is uncertainty. Now imagine convincing yourself there is definitely going to be a terrible storm that will ruin your entire day. That is catastrophic thinking. One is reality, the other is imagination. So, in this case, how is it possible to change this? How do we begin changing this? I think the first step is becoming aware of the stories your mind is creating. This is really important. Seriously, you really need to be aware of the stories your mind is creating. The next time you notice yourself thinking like everything is going to go wrong, stop for a moment and ask yourself, do I know this? Or am I assuming it? Because that is actually a powerful question. Because many anxious thoughts are assumptions, not facts. Then ask yourself something like, what is another possible explanation? If someone hasn't replied, for example, maybe they are busy. If your boss wants to meet, maybe it is good news. If something did not go according to plan, Maybe it is a small setback instead of a disaster. So the goal is not to force yourself to think positively. The goal is to think realistically. I have also noticed that people who seem emotionally calm don't necessarily have fewer problems. They simply don't let their first fearful thought become the final truth. They understand that the brain's first reaction is not always the most accurate one. They give themselves permission to wait for facts instead of immediately believing fear. And I think that is a habit we can all learn. If you have actually been struggling with anxiety, catastrophic thinking, or always expecting the worst, I want you to remember this. Your brain is trying to protect you, but sometimes it is using an outdated strategy. It assumes that expecting the worst will keep you safe, when in reality, it often steals your peace. You don't have to believe every fearful story your mind creates. You can listen to it, okay? But then question it and choose not to let it control your decisions. At the end of the day, your brain will probably continue offering worst case scenarios from time to time, and that is part of being a human. But you don't have to accept every thought as the truth. Sometimes it is just that anxiety trying to predict the future it can't possibly know. If this episode helped you better understand anxiety, catastrophic thinking, negative thinking, or why your brain always assumes the worst, please don't forget to subscribe and share it with someone who might need this conversation today. So, thank you so much for listening. And remember, just because your mind imagines the worst doesn't mean the worst is going to happen. Sometimes the most peaceful thing you can say to protect yourself is, I don't know what will happen. And that's okay. Seriously, you can try it. So, yeah, this is basically everything that I thought of sharing in today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being here. And don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in the next episode. Have a great day and take care. Bye bye.